7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
To pursue science is not to disparage the things of the spirit. In fact, to pursue science rightly is to furnish the framework on which the spirit may rise.
Welcome to the Endless Frontiers, your home for all things science, fiction, and science fiction. I'm your host, Jed Morgan, and welcome into episode 20 of the Write or Flight podcast, the first episode of this show since the successful splashdown of the Orion capsule and the conclusion of the Artemis II mission. I have been living on Cloud 9 throughout the duration of this mission, and I'm so glad it's successfully completed. But at the same time, I'm mourning its passing a little bit, just to see the positivity, the unity that this mission caused for the people of the Earth was incredible, and I hope it doesn't fade too quickly. Of course, it's going to fade. Hopefully, Artemis 3, 4, and 5, and on into the future can reclaim that unity. But for a brief window, a brief week, so much of the world was united. Yes, there were the conspiracy theorists, the moon landing deniers, the space is fake deniers, and, of course, the flat earthers, all vying for attention during all this. But I think the vast majority of people were excited about space travel, excited about the future, and we really do need that now as much as ever. So it's been an incredible week. Hopefully it all continues. Welcome in, whether or not you're watching on the YouTube side or the Kick side. It's great to have you here. I see Legatus Legionus, the Mod Supreme, is already doing the Lord's work on both YouTube and Kick. It's great to have you here, my friend. And Dash is on the YouTube side saying 3, 2, 1, lift off. Lift off indeed. And Karen stopped by. Welcome in, Karen. Hopefully you all enjoy the show. Dash added on, hopefully Starship will soon speed up moon mission cadence. That is absolutely the hope right now, with SpaceX and NASA getting more involved with each other for the moon landing. It looks like SpaceX will be designing the lunar lander for Artemis 4 and 5. NASA's actually already started rolling out parts for Artemis 3, so their early 2027 launch date for Artemis 3 is looking very likely. I was a little bit worried about having missions like this within a year of each other, considering how long the gap between Artemis 1 and 2 was. It's not looking like that's going to be the case, though. It looks like they're going to make it, and that makes me believe that Artemis 4 and maybe even Artemis 5 can indeed take place in 2028, sending human beings back to the surface of the moon for the first time in over 50 years. It's an exciting time to be alive, and Starship and SpaceX involvement will only help with them meeting that mission goal of 2 launches a year. Eventually, that's what they want. When the moon base is started, NASA wants to be sending 2 crewed missions to the moon every year, and Starship will be a pivotal part of that. Karen says that splashdown was fun to watch, a little intense between one set of shoots let go and the next set were about to be deployed. Yeah, it was very stressful. Re-entry is one of the most dangerous parts of space travel, second only to probably the launch, so everyone was a bit on the edge of their seats, and I was surprised. Way more people watched the splashdown than they did the launch itself. The YouTube stream, NASA's direct YouTube stream, had 78 million views for the splashdown after only a couple hours, whereas the launch, I think it's currently sitting at 17 million. I had to double check to be sure, but it was a lot more people watching the splashdown. I think that's really because of the accumulation of excitement and that unity that I was talking about earlier. Not everyone was following the Artemis program to the degree that I was. Not everyone knew that it was taking place on April 1st, but once the launch happened, people started tweeting about it, getting excited about it. The lunar flyby happened, and we got all those incredible photos, which we're actually going to look at a few of them today. And then we heard the splashdown was happening, so those people who weren't aware of it initially had heard about it, gotten excited about it, and were ready to watch the splashdown. That's a great thing to see excitement for a mission grow over its course instead of dwindle. I would have bet that the opposite would have happened, but it was an incredible thing to see. Karen said, really? That surprises me? Yeah, I was surprised as well seeing those numbers, but people got excited about it. And I'm going to talk about the launch a little bit. I have to talk about Artemis 2. It's almost obligatory at this stage. This might be one of the last times, though. We might be moving into talking about Artemis 3, which is, of course, a great thing. And I have to talk about more conspiracy theorists, but there's also good news out there and some really weird news. So we'll have plenty to talk about. And we've already got some initial prompts for our Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment at the end of the stream. Last week, Ariel put in a super chat for this week's Chat Choose Your Own Adventure. So we already have some of those prompts, so that might go pretty well. Legata says the splashdown was the more dangerous part of the mission. Was it more dangerous than launch? Because I don't know. Splashdown is an incredibly dangerous part of the mission, but I don't think it's quite as dangerous as launch itself. But I'm not an expert, obviously, so I might absolutely be wrong about that. It looks like Spectrum is holding up this time. We had a little bit of a blip when I first pressed go live and the starting screen was up, but since then we've had virtually no issues. So fingers crossed that continues. Karen says, do it. Talk about whatever you're excited to talk about. That's what I do. I'm always talking about what I'm excited to talk about, and that's why I love this stream. And I love the rebrand. Karen, I don't know if you knew, but I rebranded the channel back in the end of November. I used to be called Hollywood Scholar, and I pretty much exclusively talked about the pop culture side of things. I was only talking about news reaction, review, stuff like that, what everybody in the sphere does. And I wasn't really passionate about it, so I drifted away from my channel for about 2 years, only doing one stream a week, doing practically no videos, and I just wasn't invested in it. But with the rebrand, with writing that balance between science and pop culture, which is my passion as a science fiction writer, my passions lie right there. I've gotten excited about it. And this stream allows me to talk about the things I'm excited about. No one in my personal life really knows anything about the Van Allen radiation belt or follows space travel to the degree I do, or evolution, all these scientific topics. So I get to use this as a venting, as a platform to talk about the things I'm excited about, whether or not you guys are interested about it and know about it previously or are getting excited about it with me. It's been a great thing for me to have this outlet, to have this opportunity to talk to all of you about the stuff that I'm excited about. Dash is saying the most dangerous part of the mission is keeping the secret about flat Earth. That is absolutely what some people would believe. Just the sheer conspiracy that these people have to believe in with the moon landings and flat Earth. You have to have thousands upon thousands of people across decades or centuries in some cases, coordinating perfectly in sync with each other and spending godless amount of money to fake data. It's probably more expensive to fake data than it is to actually do it, in some instances at least. And it's just, it's beyond the level of credulity. I don't know how they could possibly believe something like that. That public is possible. A lot of the other conspiracies that are about government secrets and stuff like that have a level of credence to them because of how they're not well known. A lot of they're just hiding the information. Like one person knows the information, they can cover up that one person knowing it, or a small group. But the more and more people involved, the more impossible it is to keep a secret. It's absolutely insane. Karen, you've heard the name Hollywood Scholar? Yep, that's what I used to be before switching over to the Endless Frontiers, talking about my books more, talking about the science more, and everything like that. I just wasn't, I wasn't passionate about it anymore. And now I'm starting to get that again. And it's lit a fire into me, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. Legatus shuts opening too late. The shield's not working. Are required. Splashdown too hard into the water. So many variables. Absolutely. I'm not trying to discredit the danger of splashdown. There's so many variables. You have to target the landing site so precisely. Speed, angle of entry. There's so many things that can go wrong. And the same thing is true of launch, though. So many things can go wrong, and you're on top of a flaming pillar of plasma in some cases. Like, it's completely insane for the launch. So you're absolutely right that splashdown is incredibly dangerous. I would just give the slight edge to launch over splashdown and reentry. But again, I'm not an expert in rocket science or anything like that, so I could absolutely be wrong, but my instinct leads me to launch getting a little bit of the edge. Welcome in, Sam. It's great to have you here as well, my friend. All right, let's just do the quick first topic. It's a really quick one, not a whole lot to worry about, but I want to do it. It's exciting, and I want to point out how well Project Hail Mary is doing at the box office. In its 4th week of release, Project Hail Mary has officially broken even, getting over that $500 million threshold to get into profit. Everything they make after this point is pure profit, and I'm so glad this film reached it. Something that I talked about in the months leading up to this film is, yes, I was incredibly excited about it. I'm a book fan. I knew this movie was going to be good. I hoped it would be good, and I was looking forward to it so very much. But I worried that it was too niche of a film to get public acclaim, to get people to go out to the theaters and give it the money that was necessary to overcome its high $200 million budget. And thankfully, I was proved entirely incorrect with those predictions, with those worries, because people have come out in droves to see this film, and they're absolutely loving it. The positivity surrounding this film is like nothing I've seen in decades, really, at this point, and I'm so glad it's reaching profit. It's not going to make $1 billion. It's already slowing down. It's already getting near $1 million domestically per day. So it's probably going to top out around $600 to $700 million and go to digital soon after that. But profit is the important thing, and it has achieved that. That means there might be more films like this. This means that the Artemis film, not connected to the Artemis NASA program, that Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were trying to do, adapting one of Andy Weir's other books, might actually happen. I know that book is less popular than Andy Weir's other books, but more films in this genre, in hard sci-fi, opens up the genre, because that is the genre that I write in, and it's also my favorite genre to enjoy as an audience member and a reader. So I see this as nothing except positive. We'll see how far it goes. It might just come to a dead stop if they really do put it out on digital next week, but we'll be following closely, and it has at least made money, which means we can officially call Project Hail Mary a success. Yeah, that was going to be a really quick topic. I knew that wasn't going to last long. I just wanted to point out that Project Hail Mary's making money now. It's finally making money. I see Sam with that joke. I see it. You guys are doing good? Good. Dash, soon theaters will start dropping Project Hail Mary because they're sick of Jed haunting them. I didn't actually end up going to see it for the 5th time yesterday like I planned. Only seen it 4 times. I still do have plans to see it again this week. There's a friend coming into town who wants to see it with us, with me and my wife. So we are going to go see it again for a 5th time. And maybe one more time because I want to try out the Theater Ears app. For those of you who don't know, there's an app that connects to your headphones that syncs with a screening of a film in a theater that gives you director's commentary. So I can watch director's commentary for the film in the theater, which I think is really cool. So I want to at least try that out, see how good it looks. But we'll see. We'll see. And I'm definitely going to buy it on digital and Blu-ray when it comes out, physical media. So they're still going to make more money from me. Just because I didn't see it last night doesn't mean that the amount of money that I'm spending is stopping anytime soon. I'm already getting merch from it with like the hat, and there's going to be more merch coming my way from them. So yeah, they have an audience, not just me, but there are other people like me who we're going to get milked. We're getting milked by Amazon, and I don't even care. I don't even care. Karen says, our whole family read the book and made an event of going to the IMAX together to watch Project Hail Mary. Everyone loved it. That's great to hear. I love to hear stories like that. Most people I know hadn't read the book, but some of them are checking it out now. And I love that because the book and the movie are very close. It's a great adaptation. There are things that had to be changed for the difference in medium between book and a film, and to appeal to a general audience. So there's a lot less science in the movie than there was in the book, and I think that's okay, but I love that science aspect of it. So I still love the book probably a little bit more, but to see people checking that out now, I think is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So that's really cool that you guys all went to go see it together, and IMAX is the way to see it. I'm not usually a proponent of IMAX. I don't usually care what type of screen I watch a film on, like Odyssey or Doomsday or anything like that. I'm not going to watch those in IMAX. Do not care about watching those in IMAX. But Project Hail Mary, it was such a better experience watching it in IMAX, especially the fishing scene. And my favorite scene of the film is the sample collection scene, where it switches in and out of the petrovoscope. You see the greens of the Adrian planet, the vivid reds of the infrared light, and the music just swells in a perfect way. I'm having a moment. That is my favorite moment of the film, and seeing that on anything less than IMAX does it a disservice. It really is just that gorgeous of a moment. Only 4 times, huh? I know, it's only 4 times. Fake fan here, absolutely fake fan. Sam, he watches and gets more naked as the film goes. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Should check out Reaper's titles for the Mario video. You'll like it. I don't know who Reaper's is. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I'm not sure. Aaron, there's no karaoke in the book. That was added, and I love that they did. What a nice surprise. Yeah, I 100% agree. That was a scene that really developed Strat's character, and you see some strategy in that moment because she sees that Grace is losing faith, and she uses that to bolster his resolve because he was always the third string scientific expert. So there's strategy in it, and I don't know if you know the behind the scenes of that, Karen, but while they were filming, that scene wasn't in the script. It wasn't in the script at all, and they were, doing a good job. There's a 4-hour cut of the film, by the way, Karen, that I need to see. I need to see the director's cut, but this wasn't in the script. And one day, Ryan was, out by his trailer, whatnot. He wasn't on set. He wasn't on duty. And he heard Sandra Huller, the actress for Strat, singing in her green room or her trailer or something. And he thought it was incredible. So he went to the directors and said, hey, Sandra can sing. And I don't just mean sing, like she's good. She's an excellent singer. We have to incorporate this into the film somehow. So they sat down with Andy and figured out a good scene to show off Sandra's singing ability. And Sandra agreed on one condition. She said, my daughter and I get to pick the song. And Sign of the Times is the song that was picked by her and her daughter. So I love those little behind the scenes moments. It was it's cool hearing stuff like that. And like the mop, if you remember in the film, in the Don't Go Crazy room, the room with all the video screens, there's a scene where Grace is dancing with a mop dressed up. Apparently that wasn't in the script either. Ryan was so lonely from the weeks and weeks of isolated filming because, yeah, he's filming alone most of the space scenes, and he's in this set where he can barely fit in, and then the camera has to fit in. He just was feeling really lonely. So apparently he actually started to have a friendship with a mop to keep himself distracted, and it was just a fun little thing that he did. So they added it into the film as well. There's a lot of little things that were added along the way that I think were really good. Karen, yeah, that was, oh god, that scene was gorgeous. Love that scene. I Sam, there's a channel called Reaper. He's a reviewer. It'll be funny for the chat. No problem if you don't want to. That's fine. I'll look it up. I will look it up on my own. I just never heard of Reaper. I'll absolutely check it out. But Mario, I don't have any interest in seeing Mario. I don't have anything against it. It makes sense why it's making so much money, and I'm glad fans of Nintendo are happy because ultimately that's the most important. But I haven't seen the film yet. I don't think I will see the film. I just can't bring myself to care enough, honestly. But it's better that that film's making money than something like Hoppers or some of the other trashes out there. So I'm absolutely okay with it the way it is, and just gonna let it be other people's chance to be excited. It's Project Hail Mary's had its time in the spotlight. Let people enjoy Mario. Absolutely. Karen says, wow, that's fantastic. Thanks for this. I didn't know that. The karaoke and the mop scene. Yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes knowledge that I've been accumulating. I actually have my hands on the initial first draft script of the film. I found it online, and it's not the shooting one, so it doesn't have the karaoke scene or anything like that. But I read the first couple pages and was comparing it. They did make changes from even what was there versus shot, but I like reading scripts, and it's been very interesting seeing. I haven't gotten far into it, but I need to read more in and make some comparisons, and I'll be able to see what came along the way, like the mop scene, like the karaoke scene, what was added along the way. Sam. Hate that movie. He was making fun of people who like that shit, really? I know it's a little controversial right now. From what I've heard, even the people who love the film saying that there's not a story to the Mario movie. And that's what I'm interested in. Yes, the Mario movie 1 didn't have a major story, but there was at least something there from all accounts. Even people who like the second one has even less of a story. So that immediately just means I'm not interested. I want a good story. I don't just want flashing lights and cameos and recognizable stuff. I want some narrative meat. Kids deserve good movies too. At least that's my opinion. And, I really just am not interested in seeing it. I don't blame anyone for liking it. Nostalgia is a powerful thing. But yeah, it's just not going to be my cup of tea. The thing I want to talk about next is also going to be a brief one. It's not going to be narrative meat per se, but it's at least going to be fun to see. I found a collection of some of the best images from the Artemis 2 mission, and I just want to check them out. I want to see some of these beautiful images, share them with you. There's been so many incredible ones that I'm blown away by. My wife actually made one of the lunar photos that has the Earth in the background as her phone background, so that was really cool to see. Karen said, I'm all about the story. Yeah, so am I. I can forgive so much if the story is good. I can forgive bad special effects. Good acting, I think, is an important aspect of a good story and everything like that. But with like video games, the story is the most important thing to me. I can forgive some of the gameplay. That's why, like Baldur's Gate 3, I hate the gameplay of Baldur's Gate 3. I hate the isometric controls or whatever, the top-down view. It's just not my thing. I've never really played games like that. I was not interested whatsoever. But the story was good enough that I fought through it and enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the story quite a bit. It was very well written. So, yeah, I can forgive a lot if there's a good story. Saying it's a kid's movie is no excuse. I agree. Kids deserve well-written stories, too. I mean, what are the best kids' movies that we talk about decades later? Most of them, or at least a lot of the famous ones, are Pixar movies. The early Pixar movies are incredibly well-written. They're tight. The Incredibles, for example, that's a very tight script. There's very few flaws in that film, or the original Toy Story, and they have heavy themes, and they're intelligent films. You get a lot of that out of them as an adult, and I don't mean crude humor that kids don't get, but actual subject matter. Like, even Toy Story 3, which is only a little over a decade old at this point, it's almost traumatic, that ending scene, or near the end, when the toys are all going down to that furnace and just start holding hands ready to die. That's a powerful moment and a metaphor that was, throughout the film of letting go of the past and, becoming a new person, that the phases of your life change, you grow up. That was a big thing in Toy Story 3. That's powerful stuff. Why are we trading out the powerful stuff of like early Pixar and other films in that same vein for, ooh, ain't it pretty? There's a dinosaur. I know Yoshi. I know him. and that being about as deep as it gets. But yeah, that's the way I feel about it. Saying it's a kids movie is one of the worst excuses out there. People use that to say excuse pieces of actual shit. Like Hoppers. Hoppers, I don't think, from what I've heard, is a good movie. But if you try to criticize it, they're like, "Oh, it's a kids movie. How dare you criticize a kids movie? It doesn't need to make sense. It can just be stupid." Well, then what's the metric for a good kids movie? There are clearly good and bad kids movies by the ones that are remembered and watched over and over again by kids and adults. So if quality literally doesn't matter, what is the difference between those films that are rewatched and those that aren't? Oh, wait, it's the same. It's quality, just like any other film. Isam asks, any space conspiracies you like? Not any that I like, but we will be talking about some a new aspect of the Artemis space conspiracy thread later on. Isam, they made a masterpiece about a fucking lion, no excuse. Yeah, The Lion King is incredible. It's more Disney, but yeah, a lot of the classic Disney films were incredible as well. These are films that are well written for adults or kids alike. They're just actually good movies, and they're the ones that are remembered. Like WALL-E. WALL-E is incredible and so light on dialogue, but it has such narrative meat to it. Welcome in, Judas. He's saying one great movie and story is The Secret of Nim. I remember liking that movie as a kid. I don't remember a whole lot of it right now, but I really can't grasp more than a few shots of it in my head. But I remember really liking it, being a little freaked out by it too when I watched it when I was really young. And kids deserve good movies too. Why are we giving them the excuse to have brain rot? Why is brain rot okay if it's for kids? If anything, you want to give them the best entertainment possible because their minds are developing and they can take the most out of it. Adults just wanting escapism like Fast and Furious, that's fine. But kids should be getting some really good stuff. That's why with my kids, when my wife and I eventually have kids, I'm going to read to them way above their reading level. And then once they're capable of reading, we'll try to match what their reading level is. But like when they're in the crib, I'm going to read them the Odyssey. I'm going to read them Charles Dickens. I'm going to read them Tolkien. I'm not going to read them The Hungry, Hungry Caterpillar or whatnot. Once they're old enough to read for themselves, there's nothing wrong with those books. But it's important for the development of children to be exposed to well-written stories. It aids in their development. WALL-E was fantastic here. And yes, WALL-E is absolutely incredible. I love WALL-E. Sam, no, meaning about aliens and shit. I absolutely believe aliens are real. Somewhere out in the cosmos, mathematically, there's just, the universe is too big for us to be a single one-off fluke. But I don't believe any of those aliens are close enough to have ever visited Earth. I don't believe in the UFO conspiracy or Disclosure Day conspiracy or anything like that. Roswell, none of that. The phrase I really like is, you have to be really bad at math to think aliens don't exist, but you have to be really bad at science to think that they visited us. And that's how I feel about it. And then there are the debates about the Fermi paradox, like the zoo theory and everything like that, for why we haven't seen them. That's where it gets a little bit more complicated. I lean towards like the Great Filter and stuff like that. But no, what about the transphot? I have no idea what that is, Sam. I have no idea what you're talking about, unfortunately. I haven't heard of transphot. I don't even know how to pronounce it. I'm afraid I don't. I haven't seen that before. Karen, my husband read Lord of the Rings and Narnia series aloud to our kids. That's wonderful. That's what I think is important. That's a very good husband, Karen. Keep him. Absolutely. Sam is correct. Definitely keep him. And that's a keeper. Because, yeah, childhood development, it's such an important time in their development that you can't waste that time. Karen says, I'm bad at math, but don't believe in aliens. It's okay. It's not a guarantee. Oh, you don't believe in aliens at all? You don't believe in aliens, period? Interesting. I know some people don't, and there is a scientific backing to question whether or not life could arise other places. But I just think the universe is too large. And yes, there are a lot of things that have to go right in a row for life to evolve. But then you have stuff like panspermia events that can help explain that, but I don't know. I just can't see aliens not existing somewhere in the cosmos, even if it's another galaxy or something like that. Like, if we're alone in this galaxy, I could absolutely believe that. It would be tragic, but there are, what I think at this point, trillions of galaxies that we've observed, and the likelihood that we're the only sentient species, living life period, in that many galaxies, I think that is a mathematical impossibility. I say I'm just making fun of people putting trans and shit in movies. The okay, the F word. Panspermia. So panspermia is actually talked about in Project Hail Mary, but it's a real theory that life can hop between worlds. Like life-sustaining compounds could have come to Earth on an asteroid or something like that, seeded in a Star Trek type of way. And so that's the official theory to talk about how life can, go from one single source and spread to nearby worlds and stuff like that. And it's complicated, and I see it as probably unlikely, just because biological material is notorious for not surviving in a vacuum or in the cold of space and whatnot, the conditions of space. Getting off a planet, getting on an asteroid, or however you want to spread it, I think panspermia is incredibly unlikely, but it does help, a single source seeding a portion of a galaxy. It does help with some of those mathematical likelihoods of us ever seeing aliens. But I wonder, Karen, why don't you believe in aliens with, the universe as large as it is? What's your motivation for coming to the conclusion that aliens don't exist, period? I'm just curious. Just curious. I say the primary theory is inside asteroids. Yeah, that's what I was talking about with asteroids. And just life getting into asteroids, unless it's a planet that exploded for some reason or was torn apart for some reason. I think it's just so unlikely. But panspermia is a legitimate theory that should be explored and is technically possible, I believe. It's just way more on the unlikely side of life theories than others in the galaxy. But there was something I was going to say. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, Karen, reading to kids, I think, is really important. With me, I was homeschooled, right? And by the age of 10, I was practically told, you're in charge of your own education, go. So there are things that I'm stronger with in some subjects than others because I was interested in them, and I put the effort into exploring those subjects, like history and literature and stuff like that. I put myself into, I dove into, and I loved, and I researched on my own and everything like that. But even before that point, reading is what the majority of my education was on every subject. I read the Odyssey for the first time when I was 9, and even when that literature didn't directly apply to science or other subjects or something like that, I think it helped develop me in such a way that I am able to function in society as an intelligent individual. Dickens doesn't help me understand science, but it helped me develop my mind at a young enough age that I think I can process science really well. And just overall, I think reading literature, more complicated, deep stories, thinking about themes and stuff like that from a young age really helps set children apart from the ones who just exclusively watch cartoons. There's nothing wrong with watching cartoons or anything as a kid, but having more than that. Kids need and deserve more than the superficial. Judas is saying, I've been intrigued by the idea that aliens are actually humans from the far future. Through time travel may be possible to explain scientifically as interstellar travel. It would go in the other direction if you're talking about relativity, Judas. So, like, if we eventually build ships and send them into deep space and stuff like that, and they're going close enough to the speed of light, we'd actually advance past them, and more time would pass on Earth than for ships. So the time dilation would be in the opposite way. What you're implying, time travel into the past isn't supported by our current understanding of physics. But yeah, it is an interesting idea to think that humans are, still out there, interstellar style, but yeah, we'd see them, we'd surpass them in time, and they need to have left Earth for that surpassion to happen. So unless there were humans on Voyager, that really wouldn't work, at least with our current understanding of relativity and time dilation and stuff. Karen said, I just think that, I don't know why I believe that. You just do. Okay. Yeah. If you just, it is a scary thing to think about aliens are out there and everything like that, but it's just a belief, and that's totally fine. Right now, there's no evidence necessarily to the contrary, but as long as you don't believe that there are aliens actually here, that's scientific. Your position is a scientifically sound one. So no argument from me about potentially aliens not existing, period. If you were saying they're here, they're in lizard skin suits, and they're controlling the Illuminati, I'm gonna laugh. But no, Kara, there's nothing wrong with that, because there's no evidence that aliens technically do exist. So Judas is talking to ISAM. It's not my original idea. Others before me came up with it. Yeah, that the idea of far-flung humans is interesting, but with time dilation, that doesn't necessarily explain it. They'd have to have some major breakthrough to time travel into the past, and that would violate causality and cause some issues. ISAM, just maybe that time is not a physical dimension and something we came up with. What do you mean? Time's not a physical dimension. That's true. Hey, if they are lizards... It's true. It's true. But let's take a look at these Artemis photos, because I think they're really beautiful, and we can just go through some of the best ones put together by the Planetary Society. Artemis 2 has successfully splashed down, and now we're getting more and more photos from the incredible journey that those astronauts had to the moon and back aboard the Orion capsule. Here, the Planetary Society has put together some of the best photographs of the launch from both ground crew, amateur photographers, and the astronauts themselves. This is just the list that they put together, and I just want to go through the timeline of these photos, go through this incredible mission, and just breathe in the beauty that these photographs have, because this mission, on top of all the great scientific breakthroughs that it came with, all the testing of the equipment for future Artemis missions, it fundamentally was a beautiful journey that is just wondrous to behold. So we've got a great shot of the launch here, straight off the bat. God, that's a great photo. And this thing here, oh, you guys can't see my mouse, but over here in the middle left, people think that those trolley-looking things are the astronauts escaping. That we saw the astronauts climb in, and then they sneak out there for the fakery. It's insane. They don't look up anything, these conspiracy theorists. Another good shot of the launch. And yes, it does look dark here because it looks like the exposure was changed to be able to see the plumes, the fire a lot better. Because yeah, that's all blown out as hell. You can't see the definition that you can in that scene. So before any flat earther or someone like that is like, why is it dark in this photo and not in this photo? That's how cameras work. It would have been blown out, and you wouldn't have seen any of this detail in the top photo. But that's another great one. The crowd looking up. That's a ton of smoke. Love it. And this, I think, is one of the most important photos to come out of this entire mission. It's our new blue marble. It's showing the world all at once. We're seeing the globe. And I think it should give people perspective. Astronauts talk about that all the time, whether or not it's aboard the ISS or a moon mission, is just the perspective that you get, seeing the whole world all in one view. It changes you. It makes our problems seem small, and then you look out to the empty cosmos and you realize how important we are despite how small those problems are. And hopefully we can work through those issues, those problems, so that we don't twinkle out. I've mentioned it many times, but I really love a quote from Brian Cox talking about meaning is a byproduct of consciousness. Only a sentient, conscious being has any idea of what meaning is, that things have meaning, that things have beauty. And as far as we know right now, we are the only sentient species in the universe. We've seen no evidence of alien life. So it's possible to say that we are the only island of meaning in this incredible universe. And if we tragically make ourselves go extinct, we're eliminating the concept of meaning in the universe, the purpose of the universe. And all that beauty is same thing with the tree falling in the forest. Does it actually make sense? A sound? Well, of course it does. But is something beautiful if it's not beheld? Meaning in the universe could be dissolved if we were to go extinct. And I think that's such a beautiful perspective on everything here on Earth. And it's a perspective that this image should instill in people. And of course, this shot was taken to town by flat earthers and moon deniers because they're like, why is it such a poorer quality than the old blue marble? Why is it darker and muddier? Are they trying to say this is climate change? No, this is the dark side of the Earth. This is night with camera settings, just like with the launch photo, to make all of this detail more visible. And that's why stars are visible in this photo where they're not typically in shots of the moon or of Earth, because you adjusted the exposure to make darker things seem bright enough to be able to behold. So that's why it looks a little muddier. It's not like, oh my God, climate change, or oh my God, it's just worse CGI and somehow evidence that it all's fake. They don't really think through their arguments. They change like the breeze. But yeah, this image I think is absolutely incredible. And this is a great one of the moon through the Orion window. A lot of the ones through the windows I really like. It gives it perspective. Like they're just in this little capsule, this little bubble of atmosphere, this lifeboat in a vast empty sea. And I think these shots are absolutely beautiful and give great perspective. And some people have been making fun of Christina for doing this shot, like the whole meme about how women always need to take photographs of important things with their faces and shot, the selfie and stuff. People act like it's egotistical. But with a shot like this, it gives it perspective. It gives it scale. It's showing her looking up at this world with wonder. Yes, they're doing the shots like we just looked of these astronomical bodies without people in them, but at the same time, this shot contrasts that. And I think this shot will become legendary. You like this shot too? You like this shot too? Yes, Siri. It's pretty. Siri wanted to come look at the photos and say hi to everyone. All right, lay down, girl. Lay down. It's okay. Say hi, Siri. You guys probably can't see her anymore, but yeah, she's saying hi. Lay down. Lay down. But yeah, I think that she made the correct call to take this photograph with her in frame. Yes. Yes. Now stay down. Lay down. Lay down. And yeah, I think this is going to be one of the most remembered photographs of this mission, is this shot with her. Just like with Armstrong on the moon. You want to see those humans in these cosmic settings to make it feel real, because we have shots of nebula that are so far away and black holes, and they're beautiful, incredible photographs. But imagine if we were able to see a human in those shots. It would give them scale. It would, solidify. We were able to go there. A human being was able to stand on the surface of the moon, able to look down at the Earth like this. And I think it's absolutely essential that they took photos like this with them in frame. And she's not looking into the camera. She's not like, oh, look at me, I'm so pretty. It's her looking up, shadowed, so you can't really see her face that well, just staring up at the Earth. There's nothing wrong with this photo. We don't need to go to some, feminist angle or anything like that. This was absolutely an incredible shot. Great shot of the capsule there, of the moon. Oh, these horizon photos of the moon and the Earth are stunning. Absolutely stunning. And these craters are massive. I like getting all three of them in shot like that. Earthrise. Some flat earthers were saying, hey, how come the Earth is visible on the horizon of the moon? Wouldn't it be directly above your head if you were standing on the moon? Well, you know that it's a ball, right? And that we're saying it's a ball. And if you're going around the ball, there's going to be a point where it lines up with the horizon. Yes, this shot is probably rotated, like it should be like this. But in zero gravity, it doesn't matter which way you're facing. So yeah, they don't bother to learn how any of the science works. They just assume something doesn't make sense to them. Their personal credulity takes over, incredulity, and then they tweet about it, not bothering to actually find out the answers to for themselves. Oh, I haven't seen this one. With the moon eclipsing it a little bit there, and the solar eclipse. Oh God, these are some really beautiful shots, and just like the other ones, the exposure was changed to make this dark thing visible, which makes the stars visible. Because that's a big thing that they go back to is, why are the stars not visible in the moon landing footage? Because of camera exposure. That's how cameras work. The moon is bright. God, these are beautiful. And this crew is incredible. These are exactly the right type of people that should have gone. They became so close, and they made us feel like we were there with them. I love it. And then, of course, the splashdown. And they just couldn't contain their joy. So those are all the photos. I just wanted to go through this collection by the Planetary Society. This is a historic moment. We're living through history. And I think we're all going to remember Artemis II fondly for decades to come. While that was going on, Weasel stopped by. Welcome in, Weasel. Let me just catch up with what everyone's saying. All right. Dash is talking. ISM progression is real. Time is the artificial yardstick we invented to measure it. That's a very good way of putting it. Just like distance, three-dimensional space is what it is, but the numbers we put on the yardstick were invented by us. That's a very good way of putting it. ISAM, so you can see that the Earth is not round. You saw that it was round, actually. And Judas Goat Barbecue has dropped a $20 super chat over on the YouTube side saying, if space travel is fake, then why would NASA have such slow progress? If they faked it, then why not Moonbase by 1980, Mars by 1985, and Alpha Centauri by 1995? It makes no sense to wait 50 plus years just to go back to the moon. Absolutely. There's countless arguments that can absolutely disprove these conspiracy theorists. And that's one that I haven't heard before, Judas. So you brought up a new point that should absolutely shatter these conspiracy theorist ideas. We keep coming up with new ways to explain, yes, this is absolutely real. It's ridiculous to think it's not. So yes, that's an excellent point you made there, Judas. And thank you for the $20 super chat. With that, we are at $30 for today's Writer Flight. Only $70 away from achieving the Story Forge for the Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment at the end. And speaking of that, this last week's Story Forge that took place on Saturday a few days ago, I have finished writing it. As of right before this stream, all I got to do after we end Writer Flight is edit it real quick, make sure it's good to go, convert it to PDF, and then it will be available for all members of the YouTube channel. So that'll be up very, very soon. Thank you, Judas, for the $20 and the great argument. I'm going to have to back pocket that. Weasel said, can we shine a flashlight in the eye of a denier and ask them what they remember seeing in their peripheral vision? Oh, it just jumped on me. Let me scroll back up. That's funny, Weasel. ISAM, that's how they take photographs of the black ass. Damn. Siri, great name. Yep, she's Siri after the Witcher character. You guys can probably see it a little bit, but this top shelf is all Witcher stuff. Those are all the Witcher books, including the brand new one right here on the end, and then a little Siri model with the giant from Hjaltsphere in Skellige. I really like The Witcher. The TV show doesn't exist. There's no TV show, but the games and the books, absolutely love them. So yeah, she's named after Ciri, the Lady of Space and Time, the Lion Cub of Sintra. The Weasel said, I found out recently that Beardo is the denier. I can only imagine how frustrating that is for Jed. To be honest, it is incredibly frustrating, and a lot of the arguments that I've given him have fallen on deaf ears. I've tried. There was a point that I was on Bro Science about a month or two ago, and him and what's his bucket? Oh God, why can't Blaine Blaine and him are both moon landing deniers and major conspiracy theorists, and everything's fake, everything a conspiracy type people. And it was me alone with both of them, and moon landings came up, and I kept giving them evidence, and it was just, nuh-uh, they lie, nuh-uh, they lie. Or, Van Allen radiation belt. Do you understand what the radiation's made of? Or what type of radiation it is? No. Do you know what the dosage is? No. Do you know the shape and size and shape of the Van Allen radiation belt? No. Do you even know what radiation is? No. All they knew is radiation means cancer death immediately, which isn't true. And someone had told them that instant death occurred at Van Allen radiation belt, and that's what they believed. There was no convincing them otherwise. And it is incredibly frustrating. It is incredibly frustrating. But I do love Beardo. He's a close personal friend of mine. He was the best man at my wedding. So I still love him, even if he doggedly believes his conspiracy theories. It's difficult. Karen, or spelled maybe Siri. Yes, it's Siri with the C after the Witcher character. Dash, too bad they didn't have a big glass dome like that one SpaceX Dragon capsule. I don't know. I haven't seen that before. I need to look at the SpaceX Dragon capsule much closer. But yeah, the flat earthers believe that the atmosphere is actually a glass dome and that there's water on the other side, and that's why the sky's blue. And we can't go through the dome, go through the firmament, and that we just explode hitting the glass dome. Firmament doesn't mean dome. It's just another word for atmosphere. It's a previous word for atmosphere. It's fine. Use it like atmosphere and you're fine. But no, they take it to mean, we decided firmament means glass that make you go splody if you touch. Whatever. Legatus, NASA's hiding the images of the monolith. God, 2001 A Space Odyssey is a technical marvel, but I think that script is trash. I could not stand 2001 Space Odyssey script. Loved the technical prowess, designing, the centrifuge, showing the practical effects. It was an incredibly well-made movie that I respect immensely, but I can't watch it again. If I do watch it again, I'd only watch the portions with Hal and the trip to Saturn, or maybe it was Jupiter, but into the outer solar system. All that stuff is great. That short film inside of it, absolutely phenomenal. But the stuff with the monoliths and the fever dream at the end of the film, and I think that film is nonsense overall. But yeah, they're hiding the monolith from us. You're welcome. Always enjoy the show. I appreciate that, Judas. I really do appreciate that. Dash says, Judas, watch out for the Mafia penguins if you're spreading such excellent round Earth propaganda. Yes, that was the story from last week's Rider Flight. Chat Choose Your Own Adventure is Mafia penguins. That's a new one. And this week, Ariel paid for actual Flat Earth discussions. So that's going to be rough. That's going to absolutely be rough. Dash said one of the early Dragon Crew capsules had the docking point replaced with a glass dome for one flight. Really? I did not know that. That's insane. I would not want to ride in a glass dome capsule. I'm going to be completely honest about that. Calm down, girl. All right, she's just lying there peacefully. She doesn't like to be away from me, so she breaks her way into my room when I'm streaming and my wife's not home. Legatus, I forgot. Did you watch its sequel, 2010 Space Odyssey 2, 2010, the year we make contact, 1984? No, I haven't seen any of the sequels. I've only seen the 2001 one we did for Drive-In maybe a year or two ago. It's been a while, but no, I haven't seen any of these sequels. Are they better? I hope they're better, at least from a script standpoint. Weasel asks, how's the new job going? So I have the new job, everything like that, but I don't start until next Monday, which is important to note. So next week's Rider Flight will not be on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, unfortunately, because that is my first day. That is my first day at the new job. I don't know what the best time or day Rider Flight's time slot will be going forward. I'm really not sure yet. So I don't know which day it's going to be next week. It might be late Monday night, like 7 or 8 Monday night. It might be Thursday at about that time. I'm going to have to play it by ear and see what makes the most sense. I don't want all my live streams to be on the weekend But if it turns out that my schedule's too packed with the new job, it might need to be like a Sunday night stream after roundtable. So hasn't quite started yet, but it's going to start very, very soon, a week from today, and that does change the schedule a little bit. There's actually a video here that I intended to bring up during the Artemis footage. You're okay, girl. But I forgotten to, so I just want to show this real quick. It's not really a topic. Darren says, congratulations on the new job. Exciting times. Yes, it's a very exciting job, and I can't wait to start it. It's going to be so much fun. I'm never going to get bored. That's the best thing about it, is I'm never going to get bored. ISAM just spread fake space propaganda at the job, huh? 2010 is the great movie, Judah says. All right, if you guys are saying it's a great movie, I hope it's just better than 2001 from a script standpoint. If 2010 is better, I'm absolutely on board, because the technical prowess of the 2001, top notch. For the 60s, it's insane how good those effects are, those special effects. So I'm interested in watching more as long as the scripts are better. But this is just a funny thing as an aside. NASA, if it had the same budget as the US military, and it's just us landing on every planet in the solar system on moons, punching out aliens. It's just a funny little bit, and I appreciate it, especially right now with, if you guys didn't know, during the Artemis 2 mission, when there's been more positivity and excitement for space travel in 50 years since the Apollo missions, and maybe since the space shuttle missions, but in a long time, the presidential administration proposed cutting NASA's budget by over 40%. That's insane. I'm sorry. I'm not going to get into politics on this, but this is a prime moment to give NASA more money, to unify the world, to finally push us to the moon and to Mars. And you're cutting the budget, because with the Apollo missions were going great. They were part of the space race, absolutely. But once they realized there wasn't a whole lot of point of going back to the moon anymore, we didn't have the technology to stay or build a moon base. And we were only just collecting moon rocks at that point. And at a certain point, you have enough moon rocks. They decided to stop the Apollo missions, rightfully so. Very good reason for it. And then the budget just was entirely cut out. I've seen the graph of NASA's budget during the Apollo missions. Insane, huge budget. And then it cratered right after the Apollo missions were done, and they were transitioning to the space shuttle program after that. It hurt NASA for a long time, and I think that's one of the reasons it's taken this long to go back to the moon too, because now we do have the technology to go back, but it's taken this long to get the money to go back as well. But at least with the Apollo missions, they waited till the mission was done to cut out the budget and decide whether or not they're going to fund the next set of missions with the shuttle and everything like that. They're cutting the budget now, during the height of it. We haven't even been back to the surface of the moon yet, and now you're cutting it while talking about how amazing you think it is, the whole administration, stuff like that. I don't want to get into politics or talk about, my personal feelings on Trump or anything like that. But this budget cut apparently is a bigger budget cut than after the Apollo missions. I think it's absolutely insane and ridiculous that they're cutting NASA's budget, or proposing to. They haven't officially cut it yet, but if they do actually cut it like this, the moon base isn't going to happen, and it's not going to be NASA's fault, and the flat earthers will just say, haha, see proof, haha. Then what was the point of Artemis 2 if it was all a fake and that they were never going to do the moon base? These people don't think through that stuff, but they're going to get more fuel for those arguments because the budget was cut to such a degree that the rest of the mission became impossible. It's absolutely ridiculous, just like you're saying, Karen. ISAM, hey, that military spending is why no one fucks with our military. It's true. It's true. I'm not discounting the U.S. military's budget. I myself was a member of the U.S. Air Force, and, they have a big budget for a reason. But it is just a little humorous to see this little bit about what if NASA had the military's budget. You just said, just tell them Iran is building a moon base, money will flow in. It's actually not a bad idea, because There is a faux space race going on right now between us and China, and that I think did help fuel some of the funding for the Artemis missions. But at this point, we've realized that China's not really a contender. They're a good 5 years behind us in their moon program. They're not going to catch up anytime soon, unless this budget thing goes through, and then they'll have their chance to catch up. But the government might have figured out, hey, this space race we thought was going to happen with China, not actually going to happen, so we can ease off the gas a little bit. And then, of course, with all the other, military things going on right now, this is the wrong time to cut the budget, though. If you actually want world peace, this was more unifying than anything else that's happened in decades. Artemis 2. You continue it. You don't strangle it. That turned into way more of a discussion than I thought it was going to. I thought it was just going to be a funny little aside, but it turned into actually something. God, I might need to choose a different article than the New York Post for one that we got later. Its ads are insane and covering up everything. It's making it difficult to read the article, but that won't be coming up for a little while. Let's see. Well, we can dive into the next one, which is a legitimate conversation. Over fast. Dash says, we spent substantially less on Apollo mission, adjusted for inflation, than the cost of welfare recently stolen by fraud in Minnesota. That, I think, is an excellent point to counter the people who are like, it's a waste of money to go spend money on NASA. It's just a waste of money. They believe that these missions are real, but they think it's a waste of money. There's some celebrity comedian recently who was like, yeah, this is just a stupid waste of money. The Guardian, the website, is calling for it to stop because it's a stupid waste of money. There are actual benefits to space travel because the problems that are solved to make space travel possible result in inventions that can help out day-to-day life. There's the convenience inventions like Velcro. Velcro was invented because of the space program. And then there are life-saving technologies like CT scans. If you have a family member or know someone whose life was saved because of a CT scan, they were saved by the actual space program. And what new technologies will be developed to improve human life on Earth because of this moon base? We can't imagine it right now, but it's absolutely going to happen. So we should invest in it. But also, the NASA budget, I think at this last year was 0.01% of the national budget. It's a minuscule amount, especially compared to, welfare like Dash is talking about. It's so little to spend to achieve so much. Arguably, it's one of the most cost-efficient investments that the government can possibly make. I think, oh, God. Not going to read that one, but God. Karen, I gotta go for now, but thanks for this, Jed. Bye, chat. Thanks for stopping by, Karen. Hope you enjoyed it, and take care. All right, let's dive into the next topic. It's gonna get a little conspiracy theory here. This is the fun little jabby at the dummies out there, but we gotta do it. We gotta do it. Artemis 2's mission is complete, and it was a resounding success. The majority of the world celebrated, united in a way that we haven't seen in so many years. But of course, and unfortunately, a lot of the conspiracy theorists came out of the woodwork to claim that it was fake, that it was fraud, that it was the Illuminati trying to cover up the secrets of the world. The flat earth will come out, and more crazy stuff like that. And they've just been freaking out across all of social media, going more and more desperate, being caught faking evidence, lying about evidence, pretending that two photographs are separated by decades when they're actually separated by 19 seconds. Their desperation is out for the world to see. Luckily, that is convincing a lot of people to mock them and throwing more people away from those conspiracy theorists. Fortunately, there are probably a few who are convinced by all of them. But regardless, the desperation is on a level not seen from this community in a very long time. That desperation has culminated in this. Wait, what? The astronaut engineer Christina Conch also appears on IMDb and is credited in Mad Max Fury Road as Vivolnia, Many Mothers, same name, same credit, astronaut engineer or actress. See the source. Look at the photos I found. Thoughts? I've actually seen multiple people posting this. This isn't just about this guy. A lot of them are using near the same tweet with the same photos. And this is absolutely desperate. For one, if you actually look at the photograph on IMDb that lists her under Mad Max, she's wearing her NASA uniform. So if she really was an actress who wasn't a firefighter in Antarctica, who doesn't have all this flight experience, all this time as an actual astronaut, the immensely overqualified astronaut that is Christina, if all of that is fake and she's actually an actress, why would they let her still be on IMDb, one, and two, why would it be her in her astronaut uniform on IMDb? It's absolutely ridiculous. Another thing to consider is anybody with an IMDb Pro account can modify IMDb. It's not just IMDb Amazon employees that edit the site. It's anyone. It's like Wikipedia. It's not a trustworthy source of information. You can't rely on it. So some flat earther went in to IMDb Pro, added her name, grabbed the first photograph they could find of her in her astronaut uniform, and claimed that she was in Mad Max. All of that is completely insane, clearly false, and it doesn't make sense from a conspiracy standpoint. They assume that these Illuminati and the people behind this, these Freemasons, have the intelligence of tap water. They really think that. I mean, you can only come up with a conspiracy theory at the same level as your own intelligence, so I guess it makes sense why they think these dark societies are that stupid. But the damning piece of evidence is this photograph that they use as proof that she was an extra practically in Mad Max Fury Road. They're claiming that this woman is that woman. Anybody with a prescription eyesight better than a cat's, I don't know, that was a really bad example that came out of fucking nowhere in my head. But anybody who's able to see with their eyes can tell you those are not the same women. I mean, the jaw structure alone, look how far the chin comes down on Christina, not making fun of her appearance, versus this woman's who has a lot more of a square jaw rather than a pointed jaw. They're clearly not the same woman. Like, I don't even need to dive into this for you guys to see how they are not in any way similar. But this is the level of desperation from these people. They're literally making up stuff, editing websites to support their claims, and hopefully convincing you that it's all fake. Like I said, they have the intelligence of tap water, and so they think that their opponents have the intelligence of tap water, and they're only able to come up with proof that could fool someone with the intelligence of tap water. It's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing to see this level. We need to bring back insane asylums. I'm sorry. This is a level of delusion or malice that needs to be studied and treated. It gets worse here, though. I'm going to show some of the tweets that I've had interacting with them, some conspiracy theorists. I don't go into it. I try to carefully and politely explain it. I don't try to get into fights with people, but I have done a few posts in response to some conspiracy theorists, and this is one of them. Greg, who's a famous account in this sphere, said, "So did the astronauts just go to the moon to make sure it was still there, or what was the purpose?" Obviously, rage bait. That's what Greg does. I don't know much about him, but it's clear he this is the type of stuff he tweets all the time. But this person responded, basically, yes, apparently the technology is not good enough for a landing, but it was good enough 100 years ago. This is a common point made by these conspiracy theorists, these moon landing deniers, these flat earthers is, hey, we did it 100 years ago. Why can't we immediately do it now with no questions? Well, my answer is what I think is a very sound argument. I said, this is new tech being used. Just because Henry Ford made a car 100 years ago doesn't mean the new F-150 isn't rigorously tested before it's commercially sold. We see this with every technology. When a new version of it comes out, you test it to make sure it's safe. That's just common sense. It would be suicidal not to do this. But of course, Greg comes back with, not to be that guy, but that was Gerald Ford. Obviously baiting me. You can see my reply there. But that was the president of the United States, Gerald Ford, not some secret hand behind Henry Ford. Or Henry Ford was the Ford Motor Company creator. He helped create the first cars. He's one of the most famous people in the car industry. And yet this is the response. These people aren't open to hearing the truth. They're not open to having a discussion. They're not open to understanding why this stuff is happening. I very clearly point out why this mission needs to take place, and they resort to jokes and completely ignore my points. And other people like me. This isn't just about me, but every comment to Greg and other people like him who are saying, hey, very nicely, this is why, this is how, this is the problems that we're faced and overcome. It's just jokes that come out, or raging from other people, not Greg, and calling names and everything like that. It's insanity at this point. These people, they rely on their personal incredulity as if it were the gospel. They don't understand something, therefore it must be fake. Then they go to social media and say, yeah, that's fake because I don't believe it, when they can just do the bare minimum of research to get the answers to the questions that they have. The information is at your fingertips. With the internet, all of it is right there. NASA's very public about all of this information, about the technical and scientific data that made all of this possible. But these people don't understand it and refuse to look it up because they're not open to learning. Because that's what this is. If someone just genuinely doesn't understand and say, hey, I don't understand why this is possible, and then is open to a discussion and learns, researches for themselves, that's great. That's a great byproduct of a mission like this. But these people are actually delusional, and they cannot be convinced otherwise. That's why I keep thinking of this quote. You can beat 40 scholars with one fact, but you can't beat one idiot with 40 facts. That feels so relevant right now. That's why I don't really do a whole lot of these posts. I did maybe 3 of them in the last week because I've been worn down by showing fact after fact after fact, research after research after research, data after data after data to these types of people, and it just rolls off them like it doesn't exist. It's not worth my sanity to convince these people who cannot be convinced. And it's only going to get worse. This new aspect of the conspiracy is only the latest in a long line of bizarre and clearly fake and idiotic pieces of evidence. It's probably going to get worse, but it depresses me that this is the state the world is, when we should be excited, unified, looking to the future with more hope than we have in decades. Is nihilism and cynicism so prevalent that these people can't see the joy that should be the byproduct of these events? I know I went a little hard on that, using a few ad hominems, but at a certain point, what can you do? Seriously, what can you do? Like I was mentioning with Beardo and Blaine, they weren't listening to anything I had to say. And at a certain point, I just had to give up. What can you do? How as a society can we progress if there are so many people unwilling to learn, unwilling to research for themselves, who rely on their personal incredulity to that much of a degree and leave it there, and it's immutable to them? A lot of the positivity that I feel, the hope for the future that I feel because of Artemis and the future of the space program, is severely undercut by the absolute horror that I see of these people who are unwilling to learn and progress themselves. It's really kind of depressing. Let me see. Dash said, even if they were the same woman, it's too blurry to be sure. Of course, they used a very dirty and poor quality photo to back up their point. They love doing that. They love doing that. I actually saw one guy who posted a literal crayon drawing about how the flat Earth model works for him, and it included the overworld that we see, and there was an underworld that was a mirror of it, of this flat Earth. So it was flat on both sides, and people could live on either side, and their gravity, because they don't believe in gravity, but the downward force pulled towards the center of this flat plane, and it added in the hollow Earth theory stuff into it. He said the Nazis are living down there. And it was a crayon drawing. I'm not kidding. It was literally drawn with crayon, and other flat earthers were responding. It's like, I don't understand how any globe earther could not look at this and completely understand where we're coming from. They're just so stupid. Yeah, I look at scientific diagrams with numbers, data, and experiments and believe the results of those from countless people across countless years, across countless countries. And yet, I don't look at a crayon drawing and think, everybody's lying. Everybody's lying. I am the only one with the truth. It's sad. Crayon drawings. Crayon drawings. Judah says, of course, Jed, these are miserable people who want to make others as miserable as they are. They don't want to know. Yeah, they really don't want to know. And that's heartbreaking to me because I can be a little naive sometimes. And the biggest thing that I'm naive about is that with a cogent argument, I can change someone's mind, or I can have my mind changed by a cogent argument. That is a naivete in me, a part of myself that is slowly dying a vicious and painful death. How can we get any better as a species if that's how people behave and think, that they reject science and have nothing of substance to respond with? Because science can absolutely be wrong. It's not some religion where you have to believe every aspect of it. There are competing theories. There are things that are incomplete, and science is always evolving and updating its understanding. Absolutely. And there are arguments that I don't see as completely sound, like climate alarmists. I do believe that climate change is real, that there are verifiable impacts of human behavior on the environment. Absolutely verifiable. But I think a lot of alarmists go way too far, and their predictions aren't sound as a result. But that's with competing data. I'm looking at the data. I'm, understanding the points that are being made. A lot of people do that. There's complexity to science. It's not a blanket believe all. It's always updating. But when the preponderance of the evidence is stacked in this manner, you can't deny it. That's how science works, is when there's overwhelming evidence to support a conclusion, you operate as if this conclusion is correct until there is extraordinary evidence to support an extraordinary claim that it isn't true. So when there are things that I don't believe in science, or I go one way or another on competing theories, there's data to back up that other side, and that's how scientists need to operate, is facts, logic, data, experiments, research. That's how it grows, evolves, updates, and improves. These people aren't backing it up with anything more than, nuh-uh, they lie, I don't understand it, so it doesn't make sense. I'm super smart, and it doesn't make sense to me, so it's not real. The few times that they've tried to do research, to do experiments, they're proved wrong. Like the Netflix ones are classic, with the camera held up in the light, or the gyros, the gimbal with a 15 degree per hour tilt, which directly supports the globe's rotation. They're proved wrong. So the data that they actually do have discredits them. So they just act like we believe science implicitly. No, we follow the data. We don't just disbelieve it and then say, I know better than everybody else. It's a degree of egotism, too. I think it's a degree of egotism. Dash said, even if idiots could be convinced, trolls won't drop the act. That's true. There is a lot of trolls making it so much worse. Earth sandwich theory? It kind of is Earth sandwich theory. Dash, by the climate alarmist's predictions, we should have frozen or roasted several times over by now. Absolutely. That's what I mean by climate alarmists. Like Al Gore back in the 90s said, we're going to be completely underwater by 2005 or whatever it was. The oceans really haven't risen all that much in that time. But there are other aspects, like polluting like a direct river, I think is vile, and you shouldn't do unless it saves human lives. Or as tragic as like the Gulf of Mexico oil spills, Gulf of America oil spills from a few years ago. They're accidents. They're not necessarily anyone's fault or anything like that. But those had massive impacts on the local sea life, and that's tragic. So, and there is a a verifiable change in our atmosphere over the century of carbon emissions that we have. Absolutely. But these are much smaller things, and the Earth does fluctuate naturally in climate. So that's why I like to use the term climate alarmist, where they act like in 3 years we're all going to be dead. 10 years later, everybody's fine. Oh, wait, no, I meant 3 years from now. Sorry, I just updating that. And yeah, it's climate alarmists they bother me a lot, and they make it so normal people who aren't researching the science because they don't need to are so disenfranchised with the idea of climate science that they dismiss it entirely. So these alarmists are actively hurting their own cause by crying wolf over and over and over again for decades, so that everyday people think the whole thing's a hoax. And yeah, they bother me a lot because they're actively harming science by doing so. The Weasel. We as a species have lost our own technology before. The example being Roman concrete. The hubris that we're infallible is the real problem. Absolutely, that's a great point. That, yeah, the idea that we lost the technology from the Saturn V rocket and whatnot, so that's why we never went back, and then we just went back. No, we didn't lose the knowledge of how to, but we switched to the space shuttle program, and the factories that made the Saturn V rocket and everything like that moved on to make other things, and they made new equipment to make those other things, and the equipment that they used to make the Saturn V rocket, that doesn't exist anymore. And that's what that whole quote from the 90s was about, is we no longer have the technology to go to the moon. Yes, we no longer have the technology to build the tools necessary to go to the moon in the same way. We still had the knowledge, and we built off that knowledge to improve it with the SLS rocket and the Orion capsule. But they don't care. Judas, I saw a documentary about Amelia Earhart, and there were some people who accused various women of being her and pursuing her and harassing them like the Challenger astronauts. There's always kooks. That's insane. Don't harass people. These conspiracy theorists, they always do stuff like that. It's like with Buzz Aldrin, like, swear on the Bible that you're telling the truth. Swear on it, swear on it. Oh, you won't swear on it? That means you're lying and that you're satanic and that you're evil. It's just insane. I don't blame Buzz for punching one of them in the face back in, 2003. It's insane. I hope I'm never the target of these people, because they're more than willing to show up at your house. They're more than willing to harass you on the street. They're more than willing to attack your family and harass your family and everyone you've ever known. They're straight up trying to take the people from the Challenger, who they think are the Challenger astronauts, to court to prove that they're not the Challenger astronauts. It's vile. And with Amelia Earhart, you have to believe in time travel or immortality to think that Amelia Earhart is still alive today as she looked back then. So their conspiracy relies now on time travel. Dash, Jed streaming from a submarine in Florida right now. Did it drop out? Did I lose some frames? Sorry if I was losing some frames. Hopefully it's better now. But yeah, I want to be so excited about the future, and I am, but with all these conspiracy theorists, they're really holding back society, and that's not a good thing, and no amount of education will convince them otherwise. But I do want to delve into evolution now, dipping away from the space science and astronomy that I normally focus on. Evolution, I do believe, is a complicated subject. I do know that a lot of people have strong feelings on it, and that it's controversial. I do believe in evolution because I do think that the evidence is overwhelmingly supportive of it. And I also know plenty of religious people who do as well. I am very much against this idea that religion and science cannot coexist. They absolutely can, and countless people make that reconciliation without issue. They're able to have faith and follow the evidence as it's seen from all this research. So I'm going to talk about evolution and a funny little story coming out from Africa. Dash said, as an immortal, Amelia had to disappear to change her identity. Yeah, it's completely insane. The war for the planet of the apes has begun. The war to decide the conqueror of ape species is underway. Will humans be threatened next? Who knows? But the war is just beginning. As reported by the New York Post, hundreds of chimpanzees are killing each other in a civil war. Science captured the lethal violence for the first time. So, tribes of chimpanzees in Africa have organized to such a degree that they're able to conduct actual warfare. This isn't some territory dispute. This isn't just animals going after each other. We'll read through this article, but they straight up recognize people from other tribes. They're executing each other like humans do. This is the most human-like warfare ever discovered in the animal kingdom. And it's absolutely fascinating to see. It was a little bit of hyperbole, over-the-top dramaticism at the beginning of this segment, but it's kind of important to note that apes are evolving and that they're incredibly intelligent. They're absolutely intelligent creatures that are getting more and more intelligent. We have a shared ancestor after all, and I see this as proof of evolution. 1,000 years ago, they would never have thought that apes were able to conduct warfare like humans did from that era and prior. But that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the first ape war conducted like cave humans would have conducted a war. And it's fascinating. They're going ape shit. I appreciate that start to the article. A scenic Ugandan jungle has become a bloody battlefield as two rival chimpanzee clans wage what could be the first recorded primate civil war. The ongoing simian conflict was detailed in a study published April 9th in the journal Science. I recommend everyone go and check that out if you're even remotely interested. It's a full scientific paper, and it's a little bit drier than this article, so I brought this one up for the purposes of this segment, but it's still fascinating with a lot of the research involved. In the quote, chimps from one group began attacking and killing those from the other group, and that turned into an escalated period of lethal violence, study author Aaron Sandel, an anthropologist at the University of Austin, Texas, told Life Science. And another primatologist named Jane Goodall, the very famous one, has reported a similar fissure 50 years ago. So back in the day, she saw stuff like this starting to occur, but this is way bigger scale than what she saw. We're seeing the evolution of their society as much as their intelligence. Comprised over 200 members, the ape clan appeared fairly tight-knit aside from a few clusters and subgroups that existed within the troop. However, between 1998 and 2014, a noticeable rift sprang up as disparate cliques formed, including a gang of 3 males. So this isn't rival territories. Civil war is the accurate term for it, because back in the 90s, it was one clan of apes working together, living together, being one entity. But a schism occurred in the early 2000s, splitting them into disparate groups, just like you'd expect from a human society falling prey to a civil war. By 2015, the formerly cohesive community had split into 2 clans that lived and reproduced separately, with the aforementioned trio presiding over one of them. It's yet unclear what caused the schism. However, the researchers postulated that several adult males who acted as ambassadors between factions died, leading to strained relations and a change in the male dominancy hierarchy. They had ambassadors that went between these 2 rival clans that used to be a solitary clan. They legitimately had ambassadors. That's seeming fairly intelligent. At least to me, that sounds fairly intelligent. And just with any war that happened thousands of years ago on Earth with humans, the ambassadors, the messengers, are the first targets. They send a message to your enemy that you're not playing around anymore. I mean, the classic scene from the movie 300 with the Gerard Butler screaming, "This is Sparta!" and then kicking the messenger into that pit that existed there for some reason. That movie doesn't make any sense in my opinion. Very beautiful film, but doesn't make any sense. That's kind of what we're seeing here. We're seeing the development of a chimpanzee culture like nothing we've ever seen, except for in humans thousands of years ago. What followed was a series of lethal attacks by the Western group on members of the Central group, the researchers wrote. These raids resulted in multiple killings of adult males and beginning in 2021 expanded to frequent infanticide, averaging several deaths per year. They're killing the young of their enemies. We've seen that in human tribes in ancient times. I'm not even remotely saying that they're close to the intelligence of humans now. They don't have the language of even, ancient humans from 2,000-3,000 years ago. But these are the seeds of civilization that we saw in our own species. This I see as proof of evolution. We have a shared ancestor, so they have just as much capacity to evolve into sentient, intelligent creatures as we did. What's especially striking is that the chimpanzees are killing former group members, said Sandel, who said that the conflict is ongoing with attacks as recent as this year. So that means even former members of groups are getting killed. They're able to identify the rival tribes to this degree and assassinate people from the rival tribes or deserters from their own tribes. That's not something you typically see in the animal kingdom. Civil war means something very specific when we talk about humans, and chimps don't have nations and things like that, but there's an important conceptual point when thinking about war amongst strangers versus civil war. These are chimps that know each other. This isn't a territory dispute. This isn't one group of chimps invading another chimp's territory and trying to claim their resources or anything like that, which is fairly common in the animal kingdom. This is legitimately a clan, a family dividing amongst themselves. And yes, that has happened, but like this, with this organized level, this ability to recognize each other, this ability to have ambassadors between each other, this is the early stages. I really think this is the early stages. And we've seen chimp intelligence is at a level non-comparable to nearly any other animal on land. Of course, when you include dolphins and stuff like that, there are other intelligent creatures. But in a few million years, maybe even 100,000 years, chimps could be as intelligent as humans. And this is very good evidence for it. However, Brooks believes the somewhat anthropomorphized term is apt and even helps shed light on how division can lead to bloodshed in human societies as well. That's why anthropology makes the most sense to be the field that's studying this, because we can equate this to early humanity and understand our own roots. And these are scientists, because you can clearly tell they have the right scientific mindset, because Brooks admitted this is an anthropomorphized term using civil war like this. He recognizes that it's a bit of a leap to go straight to civil war, but he thinks it's apt under the circumstances, that the evidence, the research supports making a claim like that. And they're, of course, going to be working more monitoring the civil war to see how it develops, how the chimps in these two societies develop. It's absolutely fascinating. But yeah, there's a civil war amongst apes. War for the Planet of the Apes is underway. We all joked about when Artemis 2 returned, we should all put on masks and pretend like it's the first Planet of the Apes movie. But kind of what's happening in Africa. I'm fascinated to see what happens. I don't think apes are at the level of humans. I don't think we should treat them like humans or anything insane like that. But we're learning about our past by seeing their present. And there are countless scientific benefits to looking at it that way and learning more about them. But with all this discussion about evolution, I wanted to tie in a post I made on social media this week talking about chimps versus humans. This individual posted, "Our evolutionary sibling with whom we share more DNA than either of us do with gorillas or orangutans," and it's this picture of a chimpanzee finger compared to a human finger. It's hard to deny that there's some similarities here, that it's looking very, very close. There's definitely a relation there. Sibling, I think, is too strong of a word. I prefer the term evolutionary cousin because of the shared ancestor. It implies that there's a lot more divide. I would call evolutionary sibling more something on the line of Neanderthal or something like that from back in the day. But there's a clear similarity there. This other person quote tweets it and says, "I have a genuine question. Many scientists say humans evolved from apes and other primates. So why don't we see that kind of evolution happening today? What does why does it seem to have stopped? And the other comments by this person make it clear that they believe that evolution is a satanic lie and stuff like that. But with the Civil War and other things, we are seeing microcosms of that evolution. We're seeing the first stages of adaptation that stack and become evolution. But we're not seeing it like this person's wishing we did or saying that we should, because evolution takes place over millions and millions of years. So you're not going to see it over a normal human lifespan. And the most important correction is we did not evolve from apes. There wasn't just a chimpanzee one day that stood up and said, you know what? My name's Trevor and I'm super smart. That's not how it worked. And they all pretend that's the way it worked and refuse to learn about the theory of evolution and understand how it works. They just immediately don't believe it and then make straw mans about how it works. The information is there on the internet. And I did reply to it and said, we did not evolve from apes. We have a shared ancestor. So evolutionary cousin is the best description. And evolution takes time. It takes place over thousands or millions of years. So you're not going to see evolution in your lifetime. We see it in fossils and DNA. And we do see adaptation, which stacks and becomes evolution. I think that's all absolutely true. Someday, in a million years or so, we'll just use that as the middle ground. We might see chimpanzees acquire the intelligence to be considered early humans on that same level. Maybe. But regardless, it is absolutely fascinating to see how much we have in common with them, how much they're like ancient humans. Because the more we learn about them, the more we learn about our own roots, about the shared ancestor that made us both. I think it's absolutely fascinating, but it is unfortunately an extension of the conspiracy theory stuff I was talking about with flat earthers. The information, the research is all there on the internet to be researched properly. I'm not talking go watch a YouTube video or something like that. There are scientific papers to learn and see it for real. It's all there. But instead of trying to understand what evolution actually is, they strawman it and call it satanic and say, we evolved from monkeys. That's so stupid. Did one just decide he was a human someday? No, it takes place over so much time. Time is the important thing. And it makes me sad that people aren't willing to look for the research, look for the information, and educate themselves and improve themselves, because as we all improve, society itself improves and we all become better for it. I hope I didn't go too far on that one. I understand that it is a very controversial subject, and I hope I, handled it with as much nuance as it deserved. Like in my tweets on the replies I showed to all the conspiracy theorists that I replied to recently, I didn't call them names. I wasn't bad-mouthing them or calling them stupid or being aggressive. I just laid out the clear answers to their questions as if they weren't disingenuous questions. And that's how I want to approach it. I don't want to get into Twitter fights with people about science. I want to put the answers out there and move on. Somebody might see it and understand it and do their own research. But these people, they're clearly not open to wanting to learn anything better. Let me see. Sam, someone had sex with another ape. I mean, maybe that's what it is. It's just, it's all human-ape hybrids out there having a civil war. Dash, one side insists the jungle is flat, the other says it's round. Banana theories tearing them apart. That's great. Sam, they start like this and then they raid Walmarts. Oh my god. Oh my god. Dash, Civil War is 100% clickbait, but still apt. You're right. Clickbait is probably a good description as well. It is an anthropomorphized term. It's over dramatic and everything like that, but it still does physically describe what is going on. So I forgive the clickbait aspect of it, but it's fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating. Judah said, they found tribes of chimps who have discovered technology such as using tools to remove edible insects from logs, which is not instinct but invention. They then teach others to pass the method. A simple example of evolution is antibiotics causing ambiotic resistance in organisms. Yeah, evolution and adaptation is very easy to see on the cellular level, but these people actually don't believe that cellular biology is a thing. They believe microscopes are CGI. I'm not kidding. So that one's hard to convince them with. But Yeah, the shorter the lifespan of the creature, the quicker it is to see generational evolution. And yeah, you can definitely see it on the antibiotic level very well. And apes are using tools, just like you said. They're growing more intelligent. They're able to communicate with sign language to a certain extent if they're trained with it. And there's no telling where their evolution will take them. Because I we want to be careful with them though. The more we interfere, the less they'll be prone to evolution, I think. And I think that's a great supporter for the Prime Directive as well in Star Trek. If we start coddling them, if we start just taking all the smartest apes into research facilities and study them over generations and over generations, they're not going to have the need to survive. The survival instinct is one of the best ways to propel evolution. And if you remove that, their evolution could come to a grinding halt or at least slow down and be counterproductive. Dash is saying Judas, antibiotic resistant organisms is God's punishment for choosing antibiotics over the power of prayer. Damn. Uh, and with all this, I did want to mention this. I recently finished Jurassic Park: The Lost World, the sequel to the Jurassic Park book, and I actually liked it better than the first book. It was a lot more science heavy. It was a lot more interesting. It makes me hate the second movie all the more. I already didn't like the second movie, but this really made me hate the second movie because the book is phenomenal. It's fascinating talking about the science of extinction because that's what the whole point of the book was, is these people, they go back to the island, back to Isla Nublar, or Isla Sorna, excuse me, and they're studying how extinction could have taken place, how it works with dinosaurs, trying to learn more about the concept of extinction. And it was really fascinating. And there was a section where Ian Malcolm was talking about evolution, and he talked about once a species is sufficiently intelligent, physical evolution starts to dwindle from them and it becomes societal evolution. And that can't be reproduced in cloning. And that was a lot of problems they were having on the island. Like these raptors on this island, they weren't as family oriented as the fossil records show. They're a lot more violent. They don't know how to take care of their young, and it's making everything fall apart for their culture per se. And he was arguing that's because the raptors were the most intelligent, just like early humans. They were able to become smart enough to use tools like early humans. They were able to realize, hey, the best way to continue our species is for adults to take care of our young, and we work together, we hunt together, and build society. But with cloning, you don't have the previous generation to teach you all that important societal information, and so they absolutely fell apart. And it's just it was really fascinating how they were talking about evolution and intelligence. It creates a lack of physical evolution and manifests in societal evolution. The more intelligent you are, the less you physically change and adapt. And I think that's a really interesting idea. And that explains, humans, we haven't changed a whole lot in the last 100,000 years, even from an evolutionary standpoint. But in a societal standpoint, we've come leaps and bounds. Like, it's insane. Comparing a human being 100,000 years ago to today, society-wise, intelligence-wise, it's incomparable. Absolutely incomparable. But if you compare the physical to the physical, it's pretty close. I mean, there'll be some changes, some, maybe a little bit taller nowadays and stuff like that. But it's minor adaptational differences. So I just thought that was really fascinating in that book. And I'm going to reread that book someday. I really, really enjoyed it. Chihuahuas aren't a natural evolution of wolves. I think that was some man-made interference in that one. And yeah, that's a great example of evolution, is all the different dog breeds that we have that were human created. And evolution takes millions of years because there's no hand forcing it to develop the right traits. But with humans, with a sense of purpose, we were able to force evolution on a century level rather than a millennia or millions of years level. So that supports evolution because it's a series of random events, random mutations that are nurtured and developed by your environment. So yeah, dog breeding, I think, is excellent evidence for evolution. but people have very deep-rooted feelings about evolution because of religious reasons. For some of them just even non-religious people, it's like, ew, I'm related to a monkey. I don't feel, that makes me feel gross. It must not be true. It gets complicated. Dash, human society overcoming the evolution of multiple species. Yeah, we forced evolution. Absolutely. And being in zoos, that affects their evolution as well in negative ways. It's really fascinating. Really do find it fascinating. But that's the end of my topics for today. Went for about an hour and a half, so we did good. We did really, really good. So I think it's time for the Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment of this stream, right after a quick word from the sponsor of today's stream, Plotter. This video is sponsored by Plotter. Every writer knows the drill. Staring at a blank page, characters ghosting you mid-plot, timelines unraveling like a bad sweater. That endless loop of what happens next, sucking the joy out of your story. I lived it. Outlines and chaos, competing storylines driving me mad. For the longest time, my notes were thick, blocked-out paragraphs, and my outlines were never-ending bullet points that stretched for more pages than my first drafts. Then I found Plotter, my plotting lifeline. Visual timelines that snap into place, drag-and-drop scenes to tame the wildest arcs, character sheets that keep everyone on track. It turned my latest novel, a 200,000-word juggernaut with multiple character perspectives and solar systems worth of lore, into an easy-to-understand, trackable project, complete with the series Bible, multi-track storylines, and lore documents that make world-building a breeze. And check out their latest feature, a seamless note-taking system for all those story and character ideas that don't have a home yet. Available for free to all users of the Plotter app. For pro users, your notes and files will automatically sync across devices with cloud storage. If you're tired of the plot purgatory, use my link or scan the QR code to get Plotter for life with a single payment of $150. Your epic won't write itself, but with Plotter it'll flow like never before. Link in the description. Let Plotter help you conquer your stories. Welcome to the Chat Choose Your Own Adventure section of the Write or Flight podcast, where you, the chat, with a combination of dice rolls and super chats, give me prompts to write out outlines for short stories. They're always wild, they're always fun, but the goal is ultimately to try to make something that is actually of quality, that makes sense, and that's the writing challenge for me, and I really enjoy it, so hopefully this will be a good one. Let's have some fun with it. I did have a little bit of drop of internet connectivity during that. That's why I stayed off camera for a moment, hoping it would come back, and it looks like it did. So we should be all right. We already have a super chat affecting today's story that I'll get into in a little bit. But for those who aren't aware, with this segment, we use dice rolls to pick the genre, lead character, setting, and everything like that. And super chats starting as low as $1, highest super chat starting at $1 can override any dice roll so that you can influence the story and make me write something wild and always fun. That's how it works. And if the stream's profits equal $100, I will schedule a second stream called The Story Forge, where I will actually write out the short story, and my incredible wife will do some exclusive artwork for it as well, both of which will be available to members on the YouTube side after it's complete. Last week's Story Forge has been fully written. I just need to edit it, and it will be up later on today for every member of the YouTube side to enjoy. The artwork will be coming later on. With Judas' $20 super chat from earlier and Ariel's $10 donation, we're at $30, so 30% of the way to that $100 threshold. Let's see if we can make it. But just checking in with the chat real fast, Judas said, I've read where the megafauna of the past were also supported by higher concentrations of oxygen in the atmosphere at the time, so even with cloning, some of the ancient species would not be viable. Absolutely true. There are atmospheric changes that make Jurassic Park a dangerous proposition to those animals. Absolutely. Dash St. Judas, we'd have to splice in some elephant lungs or something. A hybrid would be more viable. Yeah, absolutely. Dash, the goal of chat is to make Jed's goal of a story that makes sense impossible. That's true. You guys do work very hard to make that goal impossible. And after we finish the bullet point section, the dice rolling section of this, and I switch over to actually writing out the outline, a high super chat starting at $5 can introduce a twist at any time. That can be whatever you want it to be. I could be almost done writing it, and you can pull a Biggles, dropping a super chat to say, hey, dog girl shows up. Figure it out. And I have to somehow incorporate a dog girl into the story. So the twist section is often a lot of fun as well. We already have that $10 message from Ariel that I talked about earlier, where the story is, as she put it here, future story. But if you need more, I will try and give. But a story would be that human race is all but gone, from disease as well as humans leaving. And a flat earther comes across the hive of ants, which have evolved into all kinds of ants. So, yeah, we have some stuff there. I think we're definitely getting the future story out of that donation, and flat earther out of that donation. With the ants, we'll play around with the idea, but let's do the dice rolls, and then after the dice rolls come through, we'll figure out what aspects of her message will override which dice rolls. So as always, we have genre: science fiction, fantasy, mystery, thriller, horror, romance, parody, and chat choice. For chat choice, it's a free space, no need to super chat, just a general consensus in the normal chat can affect that one. For lead character, we have father, gynecologist, mental patient, blacksmith, flat earthers, and chat choice. And of course, with chat choice and super chats, none of your prompts have to match what I have here. These are just easy ones for the dice rolling. They can be whatever you want. For setting, we have present day, past, future, non-human world, alternate universe, and chat choice. Just going to hit the future over because that's definitely something that we're going to get from Ariel's message. For theme, apparently I butchered the word maturing. For theme or style, we have maturing, conspiracy reveal, teen drama, crossroads, acceptance, and chat choice. For wildcard, we have rocket, wings, unicorn, nachos, fedora, and chat choice. So, for the genre, science fiction, fantasy, mystery, thriller, horror, romance, parody, or chat choice, let's roll for it. 6, chat choice. Okay. So yeah, if you guys have any ideas in chat, if you guys don't, we'll just call it a general science fiction story and go with what Ariel said. But if you think it'd be funny to incorporate a romance element into the story that she proposed, we can make it a romance, mystery, whatever you guys are thinking. For lead character, we have father, gynecologist, mental patient, blacksmith, flat earther, it's just a singular, and chat choice. This one is probably leaning towards flat earther, but if we want to add in another level to it. Gynecologist! The main character might be a... Why? What am I gonna do with that in this story? Jeez. Dash is voting horror. That's a good one for this type of story. That's a very good choice. For theme, or we already picked future, so we're moving on from that. For theme and style, we have maturing, conspiracy reveal, teen drama, crossroads, acceptance, and chat choice. What are we gonna get? 2, conspiracy reveal. That fits in nicely with what we have already. And for wildcard, we have rocket, wings, unicorn, nachos, fedora, and chat choice. Chat choice. Alright, chat, if you guys want to come up with a completely random item to include, a random animal thing, person, place, thing, weather, wildcard. It can be literally anything you guys want it to be. I think that's the first time we've gotten a wildcard chat choice. But, no one's countering Dash's horror, so I am going to go with horror. Alright, it's a horror genre. Is it too scary? Is it too scary that it's a horror? Is it too scary? Oh, I think she's scared. You scared my dog, Dash, by making it a horror. Go ahead and lay down, girl. Please, someone override the gynecologist. I have no idea what I'm gonna do with the gynecologist. Wild card. Earthquakes. Interesting. That's a very interesting choice. Alright. Present day. We got future. And conspiracy reveal. And wild card. Earthquakes. Unless anyone has any other ideas, I think that'll be awesome. Earthquakes. What am I gonna do with the gynecologist in this story? Probably a good thing Karen's left. She probably wouldn't be too thrilled about this story. Oh my god. Alright, so what I have to include from Ariel is main character is a flat earther as well. Most humans are gone, and there are sentient ants that have taken over the world. And there's an aspect of it where it's all types of ants have merged into one species, I guess. All right. Judas has dropped another $5 super chat saying gynecologist becomes a cartographer. That is an excellent choice. Thank you, my friend. I did not know what I was going to do with that. Alright, and I can put gynecologist back in the deck. Alright, cartographer. What I'm thinking about for the story here is it's in the future. Most people have left the Earth because earthquakes are getting too bad for life to be sustainable on this planet. They've gotten really bad, so a lot of humans have left, moved on to Mars or interstellar locations and stuff like that. They're just gone. And there's this flat earther who believes that the Earth is flat so much and that the dome is impenetrable so much that all those people flying away are dying, colliding with the dome, or getting killed by the government, or just something like that, that he stays behind, that he refuses to leave with the mission. So he's here alone. And he's a cartographer trying to prove that the Earth is flat so that any other survivors won't take the government's offer of space travel. So he thinks he's saving the survivors by mapping out the world. And during his travels, he comes across a new species of sentient ants that are, they're becoming the new dominant life form. I'm going to make them a little bit bigger, maybe the size of dogs. And there's some horror scenes with that. And I don't know how it's going to be revealed. Now, it's not mentioned if the ants are trying to support the flat Earth or not. Flat Earth isn't really the Earth, but only one human left. I'm just trying to read Ariel's old messages. All right, there's nothing about the ants having a motive in all this. They're not trying to hide the flat Earth or anything like that. And the conspiracy reveal aspect is him finding out the truth, but how would he find out the truth? Dash, the earthquakes are driving the hollow earth layer ants to the surface. Ooh, that might be, that could accelerate, like, instead of just saying ants evolved, you could say they're an existing type of ants that have come up from the depths. I'm actually okay with that. That works. But I'm just trying to figure out how he gets it proved to him that flat Earth is fake. Like, does it end with him getting injured, rescued by other humans, and then sent in a rocket, and he wakes up to see the globe, the new realm of ants, the new hive, I think that works, is he just gets injured by ants and then sent into space against his will, and then he sees the globe and realizes that his whole life's mission was for naught. That Earth belongs to the ants now. What do you guys think of that? I think that might work. How long ago did I get those? 1 hour. Okay, perfect. I was just getting a text message about some house sale stuff, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something important. But, alright. I think I like that. If you guys want to update that, just let me know. Dash, you like it? Alright, perfect. Alone. Judas likes it? Perfect. We'll go with it. And as of right now, chat, we are at $35 on the way to getting Story Forge at the $100 level. So we're well into it. Let's see if you guys like this story. Alright, Greg is working alone. Earth is a wasteland. Earthquakes, a constant issue. Humans have mostly left. Governments united to make interstellar ships and evacuate. Sees ship launch. Oh, not she's. Greg mourns the passing of those lives who will be killed when they strike the firmament or are killed by the Gov to keep flat Earth a secret. Greg is mapping out the world as a cartographer, trying to prove flat Earth to convince the remaining survivors that fleeing is death. Only way to save humanity. Alright, that's good, that's good, that's good. Just make sure I'm following everything. Alright, cartographer, I want... It's not going to be a super long story. I want the ant reveal to probably be the end of Chapter 1. Chapter 2, all horror scenes with the ants. And then escape in Chapter 3 and launch at the end of Chapter 3. I think that'll go well. New territory. Hikes over a ridge and sees far. Looks flat. Can't believe anyone would look at this and think globe. Starts mapping everything he sees. Sees a nearby survival camp and scoffs. Won't be going anywhere near them. They'll just laugh at him or worse. Something else catches his eye far away. A strangely uniform mound the size of a skyscraper. It's too perfectly shaped to be natural. Greg sets out toward it. If nothing else, it's a good vantage point to map out more land. Taking measurements as he goes. At least he's not switching a sequel pouch with ants becoming one of them in this story. Alright. Mound. Getting dark. Base of mound is very loose dirt. Looks like it's been piled high and pressed into place. Can't believe the structure. Why would anyone do this? Might be from before the mud floods. Just add in the mud floods, why don't we? Or from the people beyond the Antarctic ice wall. The people beyond the ice wall in those extra advanced lands. All right, it's coming together really well. Decides to climb it, even though it's getting dark. Easy climb. Low light isn't an issue. Gets great night view from the top. Pretty stars. With the twinkling lights of the waters above illuminating the surrounding land. How could anyone abandon this place in favor of death? Movement Can't see. Hit in the head and passes out. It's gonna go full raid on the termites here. Wakes up in a dirt prison cell with little light. Horror. Jailers are giant ants. Clearly intelligent, but don't speak English. Carrying weapons and using tools. At the level of the first human civilizations. How is he going to escape? I don't want it just to be too easy. I don't remember a ton of information about ants. How's their vision and stuff like that? Their hearing. Pretty sure they vomit adhesive, like to help build. I'm not sure though. That might just be completely random information in my head. Starts testing the edges of his cell. Part of the wall with the entrance is still wet from vomit construction. Pushes his way through with great effort. Guards rotate past occasionally. Not caught. Sneaks out. Horror scenes as he stealthily tries to escape. Greg sneaks through the tunnels, barely remaining hidden. Sees massive chambers with countless hosts of... You're okay, girl. Of ants. Jess says, ants mostly smell and sense vibration. Some ants have sticky secretions. Some squirt acid from their butts or sting. Damn. Yes, I'm almost done. I'm almost done. Here you go. Gets cornered by an ant, manages to fight it off, breaks its legs. Remembering some info from science class, Greg wipes some of the ant's, I don't know, guts? We'll just call it slime. But I'm referring to the interior workings of it. Onto his body to smell like the ant. Sneaks farther, trying to find the exit. It squirts acid at him. He avoids it, then draws the ant toward the acid, which hurts the ant enough to get his chance to fight back. Uses a discarded tool to break. We'll go with that. Break its legs. Evasion. For hours, Greg snuck around trying to find the exit. He had a couple close calls, but his smell defense seemed to work. Finally, he saw daylight and ran toward it. Ants blocked the exit suddenly, and he was dragged away. Reveal. Taken to the Queen's chamber. Using drawings, she managed to communicate with him. He saw their power on his own. His escape was planned. The ants will conquer the world. Now that the humans are leaving and their ancestral tunnels were destroyed by earthquakes. He was captured. I really butchered that. Captured and allowed to learn this because he will be a messenger, a prophet to the world, telling humans to all leave or face war. Greg, horrified, can't leave Earth because it's flat. The ants do their version of laughing at him. Bundled up, they bundle up Greg and send him back to the humans. Alright. Greg taken to human settlement. Dropped off by the ants, which the humans see. He explains the situation, then begs them to stand and fight. He shows them his maps, claiming the Earth is flat, so they'll die when they hit the firmament. They have to believe him and fight or die. The settlement freaks out and packs up. They believe his story about the ants, but ignore the flat Earth stuff. They load their rocket and get ready to leave. Greg tries to escape, but they take him with them. Too few humans, so they can't even let the crazy ones die. Launched into space, survives, sees globe Earth, and cries, life's work is now pointless. It was never flat. Now the globe belongs only to the ants. And there you have it, folks. That was a wild-ass story that I just wrote. But it's a funny one. I enjoyed it. I hope you all enjoyed it as well. So as of right now, before any twists may or may not come in, we have the story of a flat earther who's living in a world being abandoned by humankind. Earthquakes have shaken the globe, making it unsustainable for human life to long endure upon the surface. So most of humanity has fled in the first interstellar ships leaving only the last few pockets of humanity left, who are all also preparing to leave. Yet Greg, this determined flat earther, refuses to believe that the earth is round, that the firmament doesn't exist, and he dedicates his life to mapping out the world to prove to the remaining survivors that the earth is indeed flat, and everyone who leaves is either dying when colliding with the firmament or is being killed by the government to support the erasure of flat earth. Through his journeys, he comes across a giant anthill. Apparently, giant ants lived beneath the surface for many years and were driven to the surface by the earthquakes, and they want to claim the surface for themselves. Through a series of horror scenarios, when he learns how big they are, how intelligent they are, and everything like that, he finds out that he is being conditioned to be the ambassador for antkind, to tell humans to flee as quickly as possible or face war. Greg tries to convince the nearby settlement of humans to stay and fight, because if they leave, they die in his mind, because it's impossible to escape the flat earth. The settlement believes him about the ants, but completely ignores him about the flat earth, and they force him to go with them on the launch, saying there are so few humans left, we can't even let our crazy people die. The launch goes off without a hitch, and Greg sees that the earth is indeed round. But it is the property of the ants now. That is the story that we've created, thanks to Ariel's kind super chats and Judas' additions as well. I think it's a fun little story, and I enjoyed it, but it doesn't look like it's going to be turned into Storyforge, at least yet. It's a fun little exercise nonetheless. Well, I hope you all had a great time on this week's Rider Flight. I certainly did. Thank you all for hanging out with me. So that brings us to the end of this stream. This week coming up later on tonight, I don't know exactly what time yet, I will be playing some SWOTOR for a couple hours, progressing that story a little bit. We'll see how far we get, having a good time with it as well. Throughout the rest of the week, just playing Crimson Desert when I get a chance. Then, of course, this Saturday, for Saturday Night Drive-In, Adam and I will be talking about Horatio Hornblower, the Duchess and the Devil. Arguably the best written of the series, even though it's not my favorite of the series. That'll be this Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Besides that, just regularly scheduled streams, preparing for my new job starting next week. So next week will be a little bit in limbo as I figure out my new schedule and everything like that. Once again, thank you all for watching. Special thanks to the Weasel, Dash, Legatus, and Karen for hanging around and chatting, and of course to Judas and Ariel for their donations, and of course ISAM as well. Thank you all for watching, but that's all that I have for today. If you enjoyed this stream, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. The more support this channel gets, the closer we are to publishing the Endless Frontier novels. Until then, have a stellar day, and stay curious.